I wanted to read a little bit from A Perfect Moral Storm, The Ethical Tragedy of Climate Change. This is green information. And I know that's presumptuous to have that title, but I saw nobody was using it some years ago. And I thought, well, it's a shame to let it go to waste. And here it's been going to waste because I haven't been using it. So the intent when I created this channel was to center on environmental ethics and biodiversity and what's happening to habitat worldwide. Well, of course, there's no denying the new climate change, and there's no denying that world governments are just going to let it ravage the planet. So here I am talking about ethics, morality, and climate change, the new climate change. We've had climate changes before, but this one's new. It's new because it's human created, because of greenhouse gases. The planet will warm and cool without greenhouse gases. It will warm and cool as it elliptically goes around the sun. And a guy named Milankovitch earned the title of Milankovitch cycle for that business of going around the sun and warming and cooling the earth. Well, today the earth is warming, and it's warming because of fossil fuels, as we all know. Anyhow, let's get to A Perfect Moral Storm here. And I'm new to live streaming. I've tested it in the past. Anyway, to get his idea across with A Perfect Moral Storm, he uses the metaphor from the book and the movie. And the Andrea Gale was a boat that got clobbered by 3 different storms. Any one of them could have done it in. But in the movie, you see that they just sort of survived 2 of the storms, but the 3rd one did them in. And that's what's happening to the planet in Gardner's terms, is that in the metaphor of the perfect moral storm, the 3 problems or storms are all obstacles to our ability to behave ethically. And he goes on to say where the possibility of some have been taking undue advantage of others is pronounced. The first storm is global. And an example would be like, it has to be the United States, because we are the largest emitter, at least we were till recently when China entered the picture. But we've been the largest emitter for a long time. And of course, England also was a huge emitter because that's where the Industrial Revolution began. But burning fossil fuels is not the only way to cause warming. There are other ways, but I won't go into those for right now. Forest fires will do it. Volcanoes will do it. And let's move on. The second storm is intergenerational. This is the one that really bugs me. It's intergenerational. We're doing with fossil fuel burning what we do with nuclear waste. We are interspersed. We're spreading it around the planet. We're passing it on to future generations, as we've done in San Onofre's power plant. In the 70s, I went to my first public demonstration, and that was in San Onofre because of the power plant. We objected to it because there was no way to handle the nuclear waste, and we knew that waste would be passed on to the following generations. And it has been, not only in San Onofre, California, but all over the planet. And the thing of it is, today, at least as far as I know, because 4 years ago when I last checked, today that nuclear waste is sitting on a cliff in San Onofre by the power plant, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. And if you've been following the news in California about the cliffs over there, that some of them are collapsing, as in Palos Verdes. Okay, very expensive homes are being lost, and that's on everybody's mind because the cliffs are tumbling into the ocean because of atmospheric rivers that left tons of water in the area, and now the cliff is soft and crumbling. Well, my concern is San Onofre and the nuclear waste sitting there, waiting just to pass itself into the Pacific Ocean, not unlike Fukushima did in Japan. Let me get my specs on and get busy instead of digressing. This is live, I know. Anyway, the second storm is bad news. A key feature is that its current generation has similar but more pronounced asymmetric power over the prospects of future generations. Asymmetric. You've heard of asymmetric nuclear war. That's where one big country has nukes and they put the nukes on a small country. That would be in the case of Russia nuking Ukraine, for example. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Of course, if Trump gets into the presidency, I don't see Ukraine existing as an independent democracy or having any sort of independence. Anyhow, that's 20 days away. Roughly speaking, earlier generations can affect prospects of future generations. That's asymmetrical power. We have asymmetrical power over children in the womb today, if you want to call zygotes and embryos children. Some people do. Some people call zygotes babies. I don't. But we have asymmetrical power over those zygotes and embryos because they have no point or no place in what we've done to the planet. But their day will come if they survive long enough as a generation. Their day will come when they have asymmetrical power over the next generation, and so on and so on and so on. Gardner uses A, B, C, D to identify these generations. I use 30 years as a classical number for generations, as 30 years is the classical length of time in climate change science. If you go to NASA climate evidence, you'll see the 30-year classical average used. Don't forget, there's also NASA climate change for kids, NASA Climate Kids is the name. Anyhow, in Gardner's view, the intergenerational storm is the most prominent of the three storms, okay? Here, the possibilities for taking advantage are deep. We could do a lot. He says the third storm, unlike the intergenerational storm, unlike Sebastian storms, the third storm is theoretical. And that's what I'm doing here. This is all theoretical, the three storms. It's a metaphor, of course. Like we find metaphors in literature, religion, especially, and other places. It's not science. Metaphors are not science. This is philosophy. It's ethics, also called axiology. Anyhow, it's environmental ethics. Each of the three storms hampers the cause of ethical action and threatens to blow it seriously off course. But taken together, they are mutually reinforcing, and challenge becomes profound. Each of these storms becomes challenging. How could theory be challenging? Well, it's because who is the ruling class? Who controls the dominant theory of the Earth's atmosphere, the dominant theory of climate change or the lack of climate change? Well, would be the ruling class. And well, who is the ruling class? You say, well, being an American and follower of American pragmatism, I'd have to say the ruling class in the United States is that group of folks who makes decisions about how we handle climate change. Or in our case, the Republican Party, as well as many religious groups, deceive us about the new climate change. They deny the climate change and they delay action on the climate change. Those folks belong to the climate ruling class, I say, and that's for purposes here of this test video and talking about ethics and morality and government and climate change. It's been going on for centuries. The first sources of impacts of climate change are spread across space, time, and species. Political inertia, as we have today, it must be very frustrating for Senator Whitehouse from Rhode Island. Monthly, he gives reports on the new climate change, and nobody goes to hear the good senator talk about climate change. If it wasn't for the senator having his own channel on YouTube, I wouldn't know about Senator Whitehouse's work on the new climate change. He's the guy who should be president. He should be president for life. Getting on, forgetting Trump, political inertia is a big deal. The United States, Canada, Japan, New Zealand, and Norway in 1990 all swore on to, for the sake of protecting those unborn babies in the womb, they swore on to a pact, and they were going to reduce emissions. And this, back in the 90s, 1990s, things were going to level off by the year 2000. Of course, that didn't happen. No, it did not happen, did it? Well, it turns out that the United States, for example, saw growth of just over 20% in the period 1990 to 2005, while global emissions increased by 30%. Well, the economy did well then. I mean, a bunch of folks made a lot of money. Some folks didn't. But overall, we all shared in producing 30% more carbon dioxide than we normally would have had we found another route. When President Carter warned us, when President Johnson in 1965 warned us, but practically speaking, we should have done something with Carter. And you can read about this in Exxon, The Path Not Taken, and how, I think it's James F. Black, Exxon executive engineering and science person, warned upper management about the need for doing something about their product, fossil fuels, because by 1990, it'd be an inevitable change was on the way, and conceivably, we wouldn't be able to stop it. I think that's what he's getting at. And now we know it's unstoppable, at least in 4 ways. Raise your hand if you know those 4 ways. Okay, there's a guy in Seattle that knows the 4 irreversibles. Thank you for putting your hand up there today. Because what are they? Right. Because of the warming planet, the glaciers on the planet are melting. In fact, Venezuela just lost its last glacier. Now, I imagine they're going to have a lot of Venezuelan immigrants moving towards the San Diego border because they don't have water to grow crops or to drink water that they've existed on for thousands of years in Venezuela. At least the Indians have existed on it. And what about here in the United States? Wyoming, don't we have the Great Glaciers in Wyoming National Glacier Park? Yeah, those are melting. And the glaciers in the Arctic are melting. Well, I'm not making this up. Go to NASA Climate Science. Go to any major universities in the world that have climate departments, biology departments, physics departments, chemistry departments, because climate change begins with physics and chemistry. CO2. Joseph Fourier, I believe his name is, 1827, published a paper showing us how greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane, and others, warm when in a glass tube that's penetrated by sunlight. Okay. Anyway, importantly, other manifestations of the perfect moral storm are not only possible, but also likely over coming decades and centuries. Ozone depletion is an example. Ocean depletion is really bad news. And we have found that we can control some of that. But it's not something to be toyed with. But the metaphor, the perfect moral storm, does not fit well with ozone depletion. But what does fit well, I don't know if you can see that. I have another tattoo, and it is also a dolphin, because I'm a dolphin guy. If you get the idea, it's my totem animal. You got it right. CO2 kills reefs. And why reefs? Well, because the ocean becoming more acidic, and that's one of the irreversibles. Ocean acidification is also known as global warming's evil twin. All right. And okay, so we have melting glaciers, ocean acidification. Obviously, the ocean's going to warm, which it is. What happens when the ocean warms? More ice melts. Sea ice melts. Okay. And the ocean expands. But that's not all the four irreversibles. Ocean rising, ocean warming, ocean acidification, and ice melt worldwide. Oh, that is the four irreversibles. Well, thank you, Mr. Washington in the state of Washington, for pointing those out to us. My mind got lost with the dolphin and all, because dolphins depend on fish, and the food chain in the ocean generally begins around reefs, because reefs are to the global ocean what rainforests are to creating oxygen for our planet. Well, I'm Eddie Evans. I'm signing off for Green Information. I'm sure you didn't watch this video. This is the longest YouTube video I made that was live. I made a couple others, but they were worse than this one. And so I deleted them. At least I hope I did. I'm going to end the stream. Goodbye. I'll warn you next time I'm going to do this if you happen to see this. It says your stream will stop immediately and you'll no longer be live. Thank goodness. Goodbye, folks. Live long and prosper.